They've dumbed us down. They've divided us. So this anti-American group can take over our country by division on one side and less education on the other. We have got to get back our education, and we've got to quit letting these anti-Americans divide us as groups.
Sports. Your daughters give everything to try to do their best in school sports, community sports, college sports, the Olympics. You know, things have changed over time. We've been emboldened. We've had more rights. And now we're watching, in my opinion, the death of women's sports. It's like we're marching towards the end of women's rights. And guess who's leading the charge? No, not just the LGBTQ alphabet soup community. No. Women. Women who used to stand on the front lines, supposedly fighting for equal rights, have now acquiesced all of their rights to men who believe they are women and who want to compete in women's sports because, frankly, I'm just going to be very honest with you, they can't beat a dude. They just can't. They just can't beat a dude. If you're a competitor, fairness is supposed to be the most important thing. I mean, we test people for drugs, right? We want to know that they're not using enhancement drugs. Why? Why not just let them use whatever they want now? I mean, if a dude is going out there to run against a woman and we're allowing men to wrestle women, they're playing tennis against women, I say give women the competitive edge. Just let drugs go crazy. Might as well. Why even have any rules at all? You could just pretend to be whatever and compete. Now, of course, I don't believe that. Of course, I don't want that to be the case, but that's the case. You want to know that your opponent is playing with the exact same rules you're playing with. And by the way, that means that XX shouldn't be playing XY. That's a scientific fact in these sports. The same is true when we structure our society, right? Someone should not get a job or get accepted into a school because of the color of their skin or their chromosomes. In America, you should know that the legal system will always treat you as innocent until you're proven guilty. That doesn't matter to the left. The left's abandoned all of those values of fairness. They do not care about it. They hide it under the guise of being equal, but it's not equal. It's some kind of mysterious land, upside down world, a universe where nothing makes sense, and they're trying to shove it down our throats. And they're taking away our rights. In American colleges and boardrooms all across this country, a candidate's ability to check a diversity, equity, and inclusion box has become their most valuable asset to the company or university. And by the way, don't you hate emails that come with like, this is the pronoun that you should use when you're addressing me? I'm just like, screw you. I'm not going to. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to acquiesce to insanity. But that's what we've been doing. And women are leading the way. There are women that are doing that. The American justice system has been infested with lawyers and judges who weaponize the courts and attack their political opponents. New York AG Letitia James ran into the promise to get Trump. How is that fair? How is that just? The most obvious example of the attack on fairness is the current debate really over women's sports. And many of the left argue that trans women who are actually biological men, yes, they are biological men, and if you test them, you will see that they are men. And when they die, their bones 100 years from now nobody will know what they were thinking. But when they test those bones, they will be men. That's exactly what they are. But now they're saying that they should be able to compete with biological women. And that is absolutely something that we all should be terrified of, because it's changing everything. It's changing the way we view each other. It's breaking down our society into this kind of crazy inside out, upside down universe that makes absolutely no sense. It's driving our children to mental illness because we don't even have delineated lines as to what's right or wrong, what's man, what's woman, what's cat, what's dog. I don't know. People even think that they're animals now. That's how insane this is. And we're supposed to be like, oh, yeah, you're going to use that pronoun with them. No, I am not going to address a professor at a university as a hippopotamus. No, I am not going to call that person a cat. And no, I am not going to say that this man who is obviously a man is a woman. Here's the head coach of South Carolina's women's basketball team. This is Dawn Staley arguing for the inclusion of trans athletes. Listen to this.
If you're a woman, you should play. If you consider yourself a woman and you want to play sports or vice versa, you should be able to play. That's my opinion. You want me to go deeper?
Do you think transgender women should be able to participate?
That's your question.
In
You
college
want
basketball?
me to ask? I mean, you want to ask, so I'll give you that. Yes. So now, the barnstorm of people are going to flood my timeline and be a distraction to me on one of the biggest days of our game, and I'm okay with that. I really am.
I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that at all. Neither are our daughters, neither are many, almost all of the women involved in women's sports. Unfortunately for biological female athletes, trans athletes who consider themselves to be women have physiological advantages that actually make fair competition impossible. The left hates fairness, and it has already ruined our colleges, businesses, and courts. We've seen that. We've seen that over and over again. We had Riley Gaines on the show. She talked about it in detail. And if you haven't listened to that episode of the Sarah Carter Show, you need to go back and hear what Riley Gaines has to say. Let's not allow these people and their insanity to continue to ruin our lives. Don't be afraid to stand up for what's true. Don't be afraid of it. I'm not against what two consenting adults want to do. I'm not going to get involved in that. But I am going to draw the line when an insane adult or somebody who has these insane beliefs crosses the line and interferes with the life of me or my child or my family. Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to speak out. If these trans athletes want to play in sports, let them have their own trans athletic league. That's what I say. Let them be trans athletes and have their own Special Olympics. Let them do their own thing. They do not need to compete against me because guess what? They are not women. No, they do not menstruate. They do not have babies. They cannot have babies. They are not women. They are not built like me. They don't have the same chromosomes as me. They do not have they're nothing like me. Nothing like me. They never went through what I went through as a woman at all. I guarantee it, no matter how much they think they have not. They can pretend it's called acting. They do it. It's acting. It's a lie. And it's a lie they're telling themselves. And it's a lie being reinforced by a sick society that doesn't want to stand up and say the truth. I have Senator Tommy Tuberville from the great state of Alabama on the show today, and we're going to talk about his efforts to save women's sports in the U.S. Senate. It's just that important. Senator Tuberville represents the state of Alabama. That is my father's home state, my family's home state on my dad's side in the U.S. Senate. You spent 40 years, sir, in higher education as a college football coach, including stints as an assistant coach and defensive coordinator at the University of Miami and Texas A&M. Before being named the head coach at the University of Mississippi in 1998, Tuberville was named head coach at Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama, where you coached for 11 years. And now you're on the front lines of the fight of your life to save women and women's sports in America. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. It sounds like I'm 105 years old after doing all that coaching and been around for a while. But Yeah, I'm proud to be a representative, senator from the great state of Alabama. I grew up in Arkansas, and as we, you and I were talking off there, my dad landed at Normandy, Utah Beach at age 17 and was awarded 5 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart. So I grew up in a military family, somebody that loved this, grown up to love this country and was taught to love this country. And this country has given me so much. But I can't say I'm having a great time up here in D.C., but I'm enjoying learning as much as I possibly can, but also trying to help save our country.
What is that like? Before we jump into this battle that you're in right now, and I think there's nobody better to lead this fight than a great coach and somebody who has a long history, family history in the military, and you really understand what it's going to take to continue and to win. But what was it like for you going from coaching and being with your family in Alabama to then fighting in the U.S. Senate for our country? And up on Capitol Hill, where I always call it, and I was there, I lived there for a long time before moving to the state of Texas, but it's a swamp. It's a swamp. You're up against a lot of swamp creatures there, and you have to really know how to navigate those waters.
You really do. And it is swamp. There's a lot of deep state here, Sarah. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that have been running the show forever. And that's the reason they don't like Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not one of them. He's going to speak for the American people. He's going to do what's right for our country. President Trump asked me to run several years ago to run for this Senate seat. We had a Democrat somehow was elected, Doug Jones, and so I ran. I beat him, 20-25%. But it's kind of my service. I barely missed Vietnam. And we didn't have a war going on, so I got into coaching. I didn't get in the military like most of my family. And after I got out of coaching, I wanted to give back, and that's what I did. So I campaigned very hard for 2 years. Now I've been up here going on 4 years. Disappointed in a lot that I've seen. We do have a lot of good people here in Washington, D.C., but Sarah, we are controlled by a lot of different entities from not just this country, but all over the country. And a lot of people have been here way too long. And we need some fresh people up here that really love the country, that want to fight for this country. But again, we've got several up here that do that, but we just don't have enough. And we need to continue to add to the people that really love the United States of America.
No doubt. And we've seen so many fundamental changes in our country just over the last 4 years. It's been incredible. You've been on the front lines of the fight for women's sports in the Senate and actually forced a vote on an amendment with language that would have enacted rules that the House did with the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. But guess what? Every single Democrat, all 51 of them, voted against it. What was that like?
Well, we've had 2 votes since I've been here. When I first got here, after about a month and a half, I put a vote out on the floor on transgender and women's sports. And very disappointed. I even had somebody on the Republican side vote against me, and I didn't win the vote. Joe Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia, actually voted with me, but I didn't get enough votes to make this pass. But it's disappointing that we even have to talk about this. I mean, there's obviously I've been in sports all my life, and I can tell you the difference in athletic ability and the strength and all that. But that being said, it's just do what's right. And for some reason, we're not doing what's right in this country when it comes to women's sports in Title IX, which has been one of the best things that ever happened, that ever come out of this place. So we've got to continue to fight for women's sports.
Why do you think this has come to fruition this way? I mean, you're up there, you're on Capitol Hill, you're watching what's going on. I'm still baffled at how this has happened. I'm still baffled at how we've come to a point where even women, there are women coaches who are saying, oh, it's okay, we're going to allow men to compete in women's sports if they say they feel like a woman, if they say they are a woman. How do you think it came to this? And what needs to happen for us to be able to change it?
Well, first of all, let me explain what I feel like I've got to reality with since I've been here. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing anymore up here. It's more of either you're an American or you're anti-American of how this country is run as we speak. And you want to change it to the way you want. Kind of like what Barack Obama said he wanted. He wanted to transform our country into something that it's never been. there's nothing wrong with our country. But unfortunately, I call it the double D effect by the Democrats. The first D stands for divide. They want to divide our country. They divide us into different groups, into different genders, into different thoughts and plan for the future. And so they divide us, and then they make us fight back against each other. And there's become a lot of dissension between a lot of the different groups and of people since the Democrats have taken over since 2000. The other one is D stands for dumb down our country. They have absolutely, and this is one of the reasons I ran, Sarah. I was in education 40 years, a college football coach. Nobody's better to evaluate our education than college coaches, because we travel all over the country. I went to all 50 states. I went to high schools in all 50 states. And for the last 20 years of coaching, the destruction of the unions, teachers' unions, of our education has been decimating to the United States of America. It has brought our young people to a area of possibly no return in their lifetime, because if you're not educated, you can't understand what goes on, and you can't make yourself better and take the opportunity this country gives you. So they've dumbed us down, they've divided us, so this anti-American group can take over our country by division on one side and less education on the other. We have got to get back our education, and we've got to quit letting these anti-Americans divide us as groups. For instance, the transgender, there's no reason transgender boys should be in women's sports. None whatsoever. But you actually have women out there that fought for Title IX now are for transgender boys playing in women's sports. And it makes no sense whatsoever. So what's happened is the radical left has divided us so much. It has got us now just looking at each other going, hey, we want it this way, we want it that way. And when you get to a point where they're pushing men and women's sports, you know they've crossed the line here. And we're going to fight this tooth and nail. We will win. The American people and women will win this battle because we know it's the right thing to do.
Do you think, and sometimes I really believe this, that they are trying to, they know they can't win us over. They know we're too smart for what they're doing. We've seen it. We've seen them coming around the corner, and maybe we saw it a little too late, or maybe a lot too late, but that they're really taking over our children through the education system. I mean, it's almost impossible to fire a teacher, with tenure. It's almost impossible to get rid of them. You've got these unions that are implementing these ideological woke agendas in our public schools. I mean, at the expense of our own children. And we've seen the growth in depression in our schools. We've seen with our children, we've seen that skyrocket. Depression. We've seen suicide rates increase. We saw what happened during COVID, and I think for the first time during COVID, parents just like me were able to see what the schools were teaching because their children were at home. And now it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what happened? I mean, is there a way for the Senate? You said you're going to fight this, and I know you're fighting this. Are your colleagues fighting this? What are the Democrats saying behind the scenes? I mean, or are they just being manipulated, by the alphabet soup community? And and I'm not against, people having equal rights, but what I am against is them using our children in an effort to fundamentally change this country.
Yeah, sir. What's happened is nothing is based on merit anymore. It's all about either race or your status in the community, or it's just unfortunate. And again, it's all about dividing, the 330 million people in this country, and dividing us and make us weaker when we're as a group. If your football team, for instance, when I got all 120 on the same page, we were a pretty good football team. But it was hard to get everybody on the same page, every game, every week. Same thing with our country. This group, the Democrats, have divided us so much, we're just a partial of what we used to be. When it all comes down to it, we can have our different thoughts and the way we might want to think of things in a certain way. But at the end of the day, we always knew that the United States of America was the best. And whatever we were going to do, we were going to stand up for the United States, because we stand up for the United States, it will stand up for us in the long run. We don't see that anymore. We really don't. So we got to get back to merit-based education. If you look what's going on right now, and I will tell you this, in the last 30 years, we just had the lowest ACT and SAT scores of graduating seniors. I want you to think about that. In the last 30 years, the lowest that we've seen. And a lot of it is because a lot of kids are not pushed into class. The teachers union, as you said, you brought up a word I hate even hearing, called, what do they call it? Tenure. Oh my gosh. I mean, it has ruined, absolutely ruined our universities to most degree, and a lot of our high schools, where, that teachers don't have to worry. They're going.
That's right.
You can't fire them. They get to keep their job, and that's wrong. If there's one area that we have to hold people accountable, it's the ones that teach our kids the future of their lives and their country.
Hey, are you concerned about the endless flood of illegal immigration at the southern border? How about the $1 trillion being added to the national debt every 100 days? It's no wonder thousands of hardworking, patriotic Americans, including myself, are learning how to protect and diversify their retirement savings with precious metals. That's why I've partnered with the top-rated company, Goldco. Guys, listen to this current offer. It's the best. Get a free 2024 wealth protection kit and learn how to possibly get up to $10,000 in bonus silver as a listener of the Sara Carter Show while supplies last. Again, it's about diversifying and protecting your family, protecting yourself, and protecting your money. Protect your family's financial future and freedom. Get started today at Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com, or call 855-823-GOLD. Get your free gold kit from Goldco and learn how to get $10,000 in bonus silver. Sara likes gold.com, or 855-823-4653. That's Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com, or call 855-823-GOLD. Let me ask you this. Recently, Joe Biden announced a new plan to forgive student loan debt around 30 million borrowers. I mean, I think it's crazy. As a member of the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, does the president have the authority to even do this? I mean,
No. He doesn't have the authority. He knows it. Matter of fact, he ran it across trying to get something done, a year or so ago. We sent it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court even said, no, you can't do that. It's against the law. Well, he's trying to do it again. All he's trying to do is buy votes. I mean, this guy, he's not going to be able to campaign. He can't debate. He usually doesn't know what day it is. And we live in the most dangerous world you and I have ever lived in our lifetime. And we got a guy running this country that's trying to go out and buy votes by telling, 13% of the population have student loans, but the 87% of the country that don't is going to have to pay those 13% loans? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. So every day, Joe Biden is listening to all his people in the background telling him what to do, but his poll numbers are going farther south. I saw where Black Americans now are close to 30% going to vote for Donald Trump. If they don't rig the election like they did in 2020, this will be a disaster for the Democratic Party, and it can't happen soon enough.
Well, one of the biggest issues right now, of course, is the U.S. southern border. I know I only have a few more minutes with you, maybe very little seconds left with you, but I want to get to the Mayorkas trial right now. It looks like the articles of impeachment for Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas are going to be delivered to the Senate this week. You tweeted out that the Senate must hold the trial. Why is this so important? I know why I want it. Why is this so important to you?
Well, in 200, almost 50 years, we've never not done an impeachment when it's brought from the House to the Senate. It's never happened. And so all of a sudden we're going to change history. Chuck Schumer, of course, he tries to play dictator. He's one of the ones running this country straight in the ground. Let me tell you something. Mayorkas, Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland, has lied to me to my face 3 or 4 times, telling me the border's closed, This guy's either absolutely stupid or he's crazy. And or he's got his marching orders. But I've been to the border many times. It's a disaster. Now that I've been traveling, campaigning for Senate candidates all over the country, I've never seen so many people walking the streets They're walking on country roads. They're sitting in airports. They're sleeping on the sidewalk. These people should be put in jail for what they're doing to people from Central America and all over the world, inviting them to come, and then you can't take care of them because we're dead broke. We're 35 trillion in debt. We got drugs going everywhere, and we got people that are dying at the hands of illegals. This is something that probably the worst thing that's happened in my lifetime in this country, just the absolute turn away from the Constitution of the Biden administration and all his cronies trying to win another election. That's all this is about, trying to turn Texas blue and try to turn Florida blue. When they do that, or if they ever get a chance to do that, they'll control every election. But we're not going to allow it to happen. American people are standing up. And the next 7 months are going to be very critical, and we're going to have to keep an eye on them about what's going on with the mail-in ballots for, 1 or 2 months?
Right.
It's not a voting day anymore. It's a couple months, but they're looking for every possible way that they can stack the ballot box again in 2020, but that's not going to happen. The American people are going to take this country back and run these people out of Washington, D.C. that's trying to control and create disaster here in our country.
And last question, sir, and I'll let you go, but what is your greatest fear if we don't get this country back?
Our greatest fear is it's over, Sarah. If we do not take the Senate and we do not get Donald Trump elected president of the United States, and we continue to give 4 more years of these radical socialists running our country, it's over. We'll never be able to regain it. And I'm going to say this, and I've been telling people going around campaigning for some of these other Senate candidates all over the country, they asked me about our country. I said, we've lost our country. We've lost it to the point, though, we can still get it back. Donald Trump can get us turned around, going in the right direction, along with the Senate and along with the House. We can get our country back. But we're gone. The country that we grew up in is gone. It's over with. It's going to take us a good probably 10 or 15 years to get everything back, but we have to have somebody strong like Donald Trump, and then a strong Senate that's going to stand up and get good leadership and stand up for what this country is about. We can get back our footing and get going again. But when you're starting talking about, men playing in women's sports and mutilating young kids to transforming their bodies because they think they're girls instead of boys when they're 4 and 5 years old, we've lost our damn mind.
It's like a horror film.
Yeah,
it's like a horror film.
Yeah, Sarah, we're going to get this back, but it's going to take a fight. If they want to fight, they can get it because we're here to fight. We're here to get our country back, and we're here to have a fair election come November, and we're here to get the Senate back for America, not Republicans, but back for people that really and truly love this country, and get Donald Trump in the White House, who has gone through total hell for the last 6-7 years. He deserves to be back in there. He'll get back in there, and he will get us straight, and he'll be a good leader because we need leadership here in Washington, D.C.
I saw him just this past week, and he is ready for that fight. Gosh, he is. I'm willing to stand behind you, Coach, and President Trump all the way to the end. Thank you so much for being on the Sara Carter Show. I hope you join us again. I could spend so much more time talking to you, and I hope you come back on the show real soon.
All right, Sarah. Thanks for having me on. God bless you.
God bless you too, sir. Thank you. I want to say thank you again to Senator Tuberville for being on the show today. Of course, he has the yeoman's work of fighting against this insanity. I was just talking to one of my producers before we got on the show today, and I really do believe what he said is just hitting the point, the nail, like right on the tail of the donkey, when he said, I don't know when we stopped treating mental illness and then began celebrating it. There is a lot of mentally ill people in this country, and we are failing to tell people the truth. We are letting them live into fantasies and lies, and those fantasies and lies are spilling over into our reality and into our world. Folks, don't be afraid to stand up, to speak out, and to tell the truth. It's just that simple. There is such a thing as truth, and we need to start speaking it. We need to start defending it, and we need to start protecting it. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Sara Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. It really helps keep the show free and gives us a boost in our algorithm. If you are watching on Rumble or YouTube, give us a like and a follow as well. Thank you. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our nation. God bless all the women on this planet. God help us. And God bless the great state of Texas.